Veterans, today we're going to be talking about the stages of VA claims. How many of them are there, and what does it mean when they progress to the next one or when it goes back to a previous one? One of the most frequently asked questions we get here at VetClaims.ai is why does my claim go back and forth and how long will it take in each stage? Well, to answer those questions, we need to dig into what each stage actually means. No, I'm not talking about what the VA login website tells you. And no, I'm not talking about what the VA claim status tracker tells you. I'm talking about the behind the scenes, real action, what's happening. So let's dig in. If you're new here, my name is Lukas Simianer. I'm the CEO and founder of VetClaims.ai. I'm a Purple Heart recipient. I'm a former paratrooper from the 82nd Airborne Division, and I've built a couple of big companies that have done some amazing things for people, VetClaims.ai being one of them. Now let's get started. Now let's be real. What we're talking about here is the battle map, right? This is the battlefield of a VA claim. How these stages progress and what it means when you lose ground during it. How big of a deal is it? What does it mean? Are there indicators? There's so many questions and there's so much bullshit online, but let's cut straight to the truth. Well, as much as we can give you at least. The rest is secret. So, filing a VA claim isn't just paperwork. It genuinely is a strategic battle. If you've never been to court, welcome to your first version of it, right? You're essentially your own lawyer and you're figuring this shit out. Now, that being said, the claim stages are vague on purpose, and we're going to dig into these individually so you can understand what's guiding them both from a federal law perspective, a VA policy perspective, and a boots on the ground reality that you as the veteran have to face. So if you're watching this, I'm going to take a bet here and I need you to do something for me. If you're watching this, I'm betting that you're either just filed the claim recently and you want to know what's next, or your claim is stuck in stage 5, or your claim was in stage 5 and went back to stage 3, and now you're like, why the hell is this happening? And you're looking for answers. If that's the case and I'm right at all, what you owe me is a like, a comment, and hitting that subscribe button, please. Thank you. So throughout this whole process, what I am going to say is you need to keep in mind that you need to stay proactive on it. It's easy to pocket watch and it's easy to get carried away with checking the VA status of your claim, but I would say set a reminder on your phone and don't look at it until then. Every other week is fine. I'm not going to yell at you if you look at it every week, but don't let it consume your life. This is going to happen, and whether it's a win this time or it's a win next time, either which way, with the knowledge I'm giving you, you're going to be okay and you're going to get the money and the rating and the benefits that you deserve. Let's get going. Stage 1. What does stage 1 mean? It's essentially a postmark. Honestly, it's a stamp. It's saying your claim is in the system at this date, at this time, and we recognize it. We're going to back pay you from here, unless of course it's a supplemental or you had an intent to file in prior. If the concept of back pay is confusing to you, don't worry. We'll make a video on that soon. The VA does make a legal distinction between the initial claim, meaning it's your first time requesting a benefit, or a supplemental claim, requesting an increase on a benefit, or the appeals motions, higher level reviews, board of appeals, etc., etc., etc. Essentially what you're doing here is you're getting a timestamp, a post stamp saying this is when it came in, this is the date in which you told us, the VA, that you believe you are owed benefits, whether you're filing for an SMC, an initial claim, a supplemental claim, or anything under the sun. Let's not get carried away. Stage 1 just means they've received it. No real movement has happened here. That being said, one of the most critical things about stage 1, and really the big action item from you, is if you have submitted a claim, either via the quick submit portal or through the mail or VSO or whoever, you need to understand that if it's not in stage 1 or the date on stage 1 is wrong, that's something you need to fix. We've made it to stage 2. We're now under review. What does this really mean? This is kind of like the unicorn of VA claim stages. Why? Because no one sees their claim in stage 2. It happens really quickly. But let's talk about what's actually going on behind the scenes here. In reality, it kind of stays in stage 1, and I'm pretty sure they just skip it to stage 3. That's what we've seen. Who knows? That being said, a veteran service representative is starting to review your file. And what they're looking at is essentially 4 core criteria that they want to assess. Is your claim complete? Do you meet the basic eligibility requirements? Have you submitted enough medical and service records to move forward? And 4, is this a new claim, a supplemental claim, or an increased rating? That's all they're looking at, and if you check those boxes, it's instantaneously going to go to stage 3. What I want you to do is think of getting to stage 3 as your first win, because at stage 2, this VSR is nothing more than a gatekeeper. They're saying, does this check the minimum boxes for us to spend our time looking at it? If so, congratulations, on to stage 3. And what happens in stage 3. Stage 3 is the gathering of evidence. The VA requests records from providers, the DoD, CMP exams of the past. If you've signed a VCA or a healthcare release so the VA can get your external medical records, they're going to be pulling those. And most importantly of all, this is when the VA is going to be scheduling your CMP appointments. Now, what happens? Well, the VA contracts based upon locale. The VA will contract one of the contractors, and they will say, hey, we need CMP exams. This is the veteran's information. These are the exams we need. And then one of these contractors, who mind you is the lowest bidder on a government contract, will reach out to you and hopefully schedule you appropriately. Sometimes these things are flexible, sometimes they're not. Sometimes they say, you got an appointment next Tuesday, and if you don't make it, tough luck. That does happen, and it's unfortunate, but there's recourse to that, and we'll talk about it. Let's dig into stage 3, though. So M21-1, Part 1, Chapter 1, VA's evidence gathering protocol is what we're referring to out of this. And so once the VA finishes the triage, stage 2, the claim enters evidence gathering phase, and this is where the real behind the scenes action starts to happen. So the VA lays out its standard operating procedures for collecting everything to decide your claim, but here's the inside scoop on that. The VA uses a duty to assist model. Now this is laughable because we all know the VA doesn't do a damn thing to assist veterans in getting the rating they deserve. The VA uses a duty to assist model, meaning they're required by law to help you develop their claim. Now, is just undefinable word apparently in the legal sense because the VA rarely does that. But requesting your service treatment records is how they will help. Pulling VA medical records, which they already have, is how they will help. And coordinating with DoD, Social Security, and private doctors. If you've authorized this with the 4142 or 4142 Alpha, those are the forms that are used for the medical releases to get your civilian medical records. And they will also order the CMP exams. This is why I think it's funny when they say help, because if they really wanted to help, they would dig in and understand like, oh, this dude got blown up. Of course he's got a TBI. He's got injuries from something cracking his skull. Of course he's got a TBI. Both of those are very, very real examples of veterans that we've helped just in the past 2 months that came to the top of my head when making this. The VA doesn't actually help you in getting anywhere, but they will help you get those records. There's that, I guess. Got that going for me. So here's what most vets don't know. Even though the VA must help you gather evidence, they won't chase it down. If a doctor's office misses a call, they're not going to call back 3 times. They might call back once, maybe, kind of, sort of. If you don't respond to a request or your doctor drags the feet, the VA can move forward without it. And that's completely within what they're allowed to do. And that will lead to, or could lead to, a pretty instantaneous denial. If you go to VetClaims.ai, we're going to make sure that all of this is submitted along with your initial claim or supplemental claim, whatever it is, but all submitted at once, because you want to understand the difference between a fully developed claim and just a regular claim. Regular claim means I need the VA to get all my shit. I don't have all my shit. Fully developed claim and FTC, it's going to get moved a lot quicker. It's going to get treated a lot better. It's going to get priority. It's going to move faster in general. We took someone from 60% to 100% in just 2 months. As much as I would love to say, ooh, that's the VetClaims.ai magic secret sauce, it's not. It's a fully developed claim. It's having all the research present. It's having all the medical backing. It's having all of the citations that support your claim there and present for a rater to read. I'm going to say this again and again in every video we make. The VA will not connect a single dot for you. It is up to you to connect the dots for the rater. Why? Because this rater might be the nicest, most gracious, best person in the whole wide world. They've saved 30 shelter dogs in the past month alone. They still have to do 2 million claims a year. So I don't know how many claims each rater is doing, but as you can imagine, these are thorough and lengthy documents. If you're making them speculate, they probably have like 1% brain power left at the end of every day. The more you connect every single dot for the VA, the better. And that's why VetClaims.ai has a success rate we do. When you're putting evidence together, what really matters? There's 2 C's and a P, the CCP. But we're not talking about China. Don't cancel me. Competent, they want it to come from a competent source. This is a big area of debate in and of itself, because one might say that what they mean by competent is you need to be a doctor. Interesting. But then there's also VA case law, Nicholson versus Buchanan, I believe it was, 2006. But that case law stated that veterans are competent. You tell me what competence is. Pretty sure we're all competent to say, my knee's broken. Evidence needs to be competent, and it needs to be credible. So don't be a shithead, and don't exaggerate, and don't lie. And it needs to be probative, directly related to the issue that you're claiming. Now that you understand that all your evidence needs to be CCP, and once again, I really mean this, not the Chinese Communist Party, please. That was the last administration. They might have liked that. This one, probably not going to help you claim very much. So what we want to talk about here is knowing the CCP when it comes to the evidence, integrating that throughout the entire process of what you're evaluating. Don't send them your boy's text message saying, yeah, man, I remember you swore like a motherfucker. No, do something that looks legit. Stage 3 does tend to be the longest stage, that or stage 5. Those are the two. And we'll get into stage 5 obviously here in a minute. But what you can do to save yourself the most time is upload everything yourself. If you have those medical records, don't make the VA go get them. Use the VA's quick submit portal, upload that shit. You don't have to, it's not crazy, it's not complicated. It's literally like Google Drive or Dropbox. You just boop after you log in. It's that easy. They'll know it has to do with your claim. Let's move on. All right, we've made it to stage 4, and this is pretty fucking exciting, right? We now are reviewing our evidence. Well, the VA is. You're not. Because we know what you'd do. You'd stamp that shit away. Remember, fraud is bad unless you're in Congress. We talked about this in our last video. 38 CFR, subsection 3.102, the reasonable doubt doctrine. Now, what does that mean? Sounds promising, right? And it kind of is, although the Supreme Court just recently took a shit on it. We made a video about that, though. So what's happening now? A VA rater or a decision maker has finally something on their desk to review from your claim. All the stuff is compiled together and they're ready to go through it. The buddy letters, the nexus letters, you name it. Under 38 CFR, subsection 3.102, the VA is guided by what's called the benefit of the doubt doctrine. Now, what does this really mean? Well, it means that if everything is in equipoise, all evidence is equal, the VA must grant the claim in favor of the veteran. Sounds great, right? What does it mean in reality? It means in reality that if you do not have a viable form of evidence connecting it to service, even if you got the disability diagnosed 13 times by 13 doctors, add in a 14th one there, it doesn't fucking matter. It's really not the benefit of the doubt, and they're really not giving you the benefit of the doubt. They're not saying, well, he said it happened in service and he's got the disability, so might as well. Nope, doesn't work that way. Why? Because the VA doesn't follow their own rules. Furthermore, the federal government doesn't want to pay you money. Furthermore, bureaucracy. The reality of the situation is that what reasonable doubt means is that unless they have reasonable evidence against you, it's going to go in your favor. But that doesn't mean that they're just going to give you things. A 0 and a 0 doesn't mean that you win. A 0 and a 0 means the VA wins. A 0 and a 1 typically means you win if the VA follows their own rules. This is where it gets really gray, and that's why we here at VetClaims.ai exist. To clear this up even more, because I feel like what I just said might have left you even more confused. And I promise that wasn't my intention. I just want to give you the straight up reality, because we see thousands of these every month, and we see exactly what happens and why these decisions are made the way they are. Ultimately, in this reviewing of the evidence, they're going to look, and they're going to see if you have the core pieces needed to get your claim. You have to have a diagnosed disability. Now, does that mean that for every single claim you need to go to a doctor before you file the claim and get them to diagnose it or write something? No, it doesn't. Now, for some things, it definitely does. More and more, the VA is not letting the C&P examiners diagnose things on the spot. That is silly, because what the hell is the point of having a medical professional examine somebody on behalf of the VA to assess the existence or non-existence of a disability if the medical professional examining the individual on behalf of the VA does not want to validate or invalidate the hypothesis that a disability in this individual exists? Fucking mind them. I cannot believe the words that I just said left my fucking mouth. That's the reality that we're living in. And that's how this works. In all transparency, that's the game. But you need the diagnosed disability. Some disabilities, you need to have them done before you go to the C&P exam, like sleep apnea. C&P examiner, we've seen it one time out of about 800, probably. I made that stat up. But there's one time that comes to my head out of everybody we've ever served where the C&P examiner gave them a take-home sleep study, and then they reported back and they did the thing and they got the claim. Every other time, nope, there's no diagnosis because there's no sleep study done prior. That's just one example of this. An example on the other side of the coin is migraines. You don't need to be diagnosed with migraines before you go in to the C&P exam. Why? Well, especially not if there's good medical etiology. If you've been exposed to a blast or some sort of TBI and you're like, oh, I got migraines, they're not going to be like, well, you never went to a doctor for it. No, they're not going to do that. So there is a difference, and I hope that kind of clarifies that a bit. When we go through this, reasonable doubt doctrine applies as such. No less, you need to have a diagnosed disability, whether in C&P or not. You need to have a nexus or a connection to service. Nexus does not mean you need to pay some doctor in a box to write you a letter saying it's as likely as not this disability is due to service. That is exactly not what you need, in fact. You do not need to pay people money to go to a doc in a box. What you do need is a research-based paper. You need something that creates nexus, which is defined as just a linkage between one or more things. You need a paper that you can write yourself, or you can go to VetClaims.ai, or if anybody else out there is doing that, good for them as well. A nexus letter can be and should be understood to be, honestly, a document that states this occurred in service, or it occurred because of this service-connected disability, or it's connected to this service-connected disability. And the paper should be full of VA case law, citations of medical journals, common sense application of medical etiology, and referencing 38 CFR at every juncture possible. That was a long sidebar, but let's pop back over to that list of things that we need. We need a diagnosis, whether in the C&P exam or prior to it. We need a connection to service, whether through exposure, direct or secondary, or even with an intermediary like obesity. And then, finally, we need the ability to tie this all together in a cohesive format that is presented for the rater in a way where all those dots are connected. Because even if you have these two, if what you submit to the VA is just a bunch of gobbledygook shit, it's not formatted, it's not clean, it's not concise, it's not making a coherent point in the way that it's organized, 50-50, right? The best claim in the world can go straight to hell in a handbasket. Now, the final component of this, which no one will tell you, is that the best claim in the world, written by the smartest individual in the world that has done this for 1,000,001 years, it doesn't matter if you don't know what you're doing in the CM C&P exam. I say this repeatedly. One of the biggest value adds we add at VetClaims and what we tell everybody, and what I'm telling you, whether you work with us or not, is you need to understand the schedule of ratings for the things that you're claiming. Because if you do not use the verbiage that the VA identifies with for the C&P exams, you are out of luck. The best VA claim in the world will get nuked in the C&P exam if you don't know what you're doing. That being said, Stage 4 is them reviewing that evidence, which we just went through in a lot of thoroughness and a lot of tangents. I'm just being real with you guys. I'm trying to give you the most accurate, concise understanding of what to expect and what to go on. I will say this. Let's pause really quick. If you're watching this now and you just submitted a claim and you have missed out on the things that I'm talking about, right? You don't have these letters. You don't think your claim connects the dots for the VA. Go to VetClaims.ai or do research on your own, whichever way you want to do it. But if you just filed this claim, it is not too late to add stuff via the VA's Quick Submit portal. In fact, I would say all the way up to the point where you have your C&P exams. As long as you can get this uploaded prior to then, shit, go for it. Get it done and get it in, all right? Congratulations, you finally made it to stage 5, what we call purgatory, the bottleneck, or as the VA likes to say, the preparation for decision. This is the time for the nail biting. Why does stage 5 take so long? I know that's the first thing. In fact, there's probably people who skipped in this video to this section right here, and if you did so, I understand. I did the same thing when I was going through my claim process. Stage 5 does take forever, disproportionate amount of time. Sometimes you can speed run all the way up to stage 5. You can get like, in 2 months, we got to stage 5, but now I've been in stage 5 for 3 months. What the hell's going on? Well, there's good reason for that, and I'm here to tell you it's not going to make it any easier, but hopefully you understand what's going on behind the scenes at this part. Stage 5 is the preparation for decision. And what that means is that the rating officer who is going through all of your stuff, the person who's making that decision, they are now putting together that decision letter. If this is your initial claim and you don't know what a VA decision letter looks like, I can tell you it's about 5 pages of stuff that's meaningful to you and about 100 pages of shit that don't matter. Maybe not 100, maybe 30. But regardless, it's a lot of bullshit. There's a lot of compliance, there's a lot of legal compliance, and there's a lot of medical compliance that they have to go through before they approve this letter or send it out. So in this stage, they're ultimately making that decision, the cognitive part. You're asking a federal employee to think, and that is probably the third most dangerous thing you can do with a federal employee. The second is tell them that you know Hillary Clinton. The third is to tell them that you know what she did with those emails. But that's a list that you just don't want to dig into. By the way, I am not suicidal, and I don't know anything about Hillary or the emails. In the stage 5 preparation for decision, what they're doing is they're going through all the stuff. They've gone through the evidence, and now they've made their determinations, and they're going to be writing out line by line, and mostly copy and pasting little snippets and legal jargon, right? But they're going to have to find the justification for each and everything that you've claimed, both legally and then medically, and then they're going to have to double check it with M21, 30 CFR, and furthermore, for the things that they're approving, what they're going to have to do is reference the schedule of ratings. So if you've got PTSD, for example, they're going to have to look at that DBQ. They're going to say, cool, we got a competent report from the C&P examiner. We've got this from their service records, whatever the corroborating factors are. But now we have to determine, like, where on the scale does it fall? Ultimately, I do have some empathy there. This is not a clean and crisp process. No two veterans' disabilities or injuries, even for the same type of disability or injury, look exactly the same. And the rater wants to do the best by the veteran, but also wants to stay compliant with the law, their guidelines, and keep their job and their nice federal retirement, and also avoid the Clintons. With that, what they do is they have to make these decisions. And that's tough, especially when you think about the number of claims they're doing and you think about how complex some of these things are and how it affects their life. And also, like, how much is lost in translation between what the veteran says and what these shitty C&P examiners say. That is the holistic truth. That's what's going on here, and that's why it takes so long. Now, I know the second biggest question we get is, my claim was in stage 5 and now it went back to stage 3. Why? Because they're now reviewing all this and they're looking at it, and they're looking at it in the legal compliance light, medical compliance light, and they're saying, oh, well, the C&P examiner gave me enough to, like, make a decision, but the way they wrote this doesn't actually clarify, or it doesn't say X. It doesn't say something that they needed to say. It doesn't have something they needed to have. And so they'll kick one of the exams back to that C&P examiner and say, hey, you need to redo this, or you need to clarify here, or I have a question about X. That is why things go from stage 5 back to stage 3. It's the way the world works on this one, my friends. That's why that happens, and that's why it can feel like purgatory when it's sitting there. But trust me, it's because you're asking a federal employee to think. Let's move on. Ready? Hope you are. So stage 6, pending decision approval. This is wild work, my friends. This one can be quick. This one can be long. Typically, it lasts no more than a week. But stage 6, it's covered by M21-1, Part 3, Subpart 5, Chapter 6, Rating Decision Review Process. After your rating is drafted, a second reviewer or supervisor is going to go over it and make sure that the first guy doesn't do something that will get him Clinton. So they're going to review it, and then if it's approved, they're going to send it out to you. Now, here's the fun part. One of the things that I always thought was just kind of one of those psychopathic traits, like a girl you'd want to date in high school, but you know you shouldn't. And it's that once they say, hey, your decision's approved, they don't show it to you. They say, nah, we're going to mail it to you. That shit's messed up. It's funny, but it's messed up. Stage 7, preparation for notification. We got one more to go. This is covered under 38 CFR subsection 3.103B, the notification of decisions. That is where the toxic psycho girl thing comes in. Also, if I dated you in high school, don't take it personal, but there's a reason you're not here. Real talk. This is when you find out your rating, your back pay, and the effective date. You need to read everything twice, and I'll say that again. You need to read everything twice. Why? Because it's the VA, man. You're asking federal employees to think. Your back pay date, make sure that it's the proper back pay date. If you filed an intent to file, that back pay date needs to be the intent to file. If you're within 12 months of getting out of the service and you're filing a new claim, that back pay date should be the date of your ETS or end time service. If you're doing a supplemental claim and you filed it within 12 months of the last decision, that decision date should be the original filing date for the last claim or the one prior to that, however long you've been having this going. Make sure you check your back pay date. The VA will stiff you on that 100%. It's the most common and frequent thing. And then you need to check out the bilateral factors. If you file the claim that has my left knee and my right knee both have, let's just say crepitus, right? Or arthritis. Okay, if they rated both the left and the right knee, did they give you the bilateral factor? And then you need to do the math on if they applied it correctly. How to do that math? We're not going to talk about that in this one, but I tell you what, I'll get someone in my company who's really good at math to cover that in the next one. Review your decision letter for errors, and also be prepared to file supplemental claims or seek a higher level review if need be. A lot of times the VA will just deny things because they can. You got to go for it round 2 to get what you need. You've officially made it. You're through the VA claims process. Hopefully you won what you needed to win. Hopefully all the denials that you got were things that are easy to clarify and you understand why they were denied, which by the way, your decision letter is also your key to the future. It tells you why you were denied and what you need to fix in order to win the next round. Decision letters are not arbitrary things. They are meaningful. They are the key to your success in the next round. In conclusion, I need you all to know a few more things. 80% of denied claims are denied due to a lack of evidence or poor presentation, not because they're invalid. So what does that tell you? It tells you that you should listen to Luke or that you should check out VetClaims.ai. You need to connect all the dots for the raters. And if you haven't done that, understand that that's why it's getting denied and there are ways forward to get it done. That being said, you are not alone in this process. I know it's daunting. I know it's hard. I know that it can be incredibly invalidating. I know that it can suck. And I know that it's not fucking fair. We jeopardized our life, our bodies, we lost friends, we saw horrible things, dealt with horrible things, all to come back to the system that says, prove to me that you're broken. But you're not alone. We are here for you. There's a lot of people that are here for you. Even if you don't feel it, even if you don't see it. One thing I can promise you is that VetClaims.ai is always here for you, whether you work with us or not. We have free resources. We have these videos that we're going to continue making. You can drop in the comments below what video you want us to make next. Anything we can do to help you as a veteran win the day. Find your next mission. And most importantly, I'll go on a tangent here. Find the time to think. That to me is why I built VetClaims.ai. It's why we do what we do. It's not just about getting a rating or getting some money or getting healthcare. Those are all amazing and great benefits and great things. But ultimately, it's about the time to think. I was homeless. I was 20 years old. I was a Purple Heart recipient. I was broken, dejected, no clue what I was doing in my life. And here I am at the ripe old age of, I think I'm 32 or 33. Fuck if I know. The point is, I've now built 2 big businesses. I've had great things. I've done great things. I've gotten cool awards. I've had a life that I'm just beyond grateful for. And I can tell you matter-of-factly, objectively, had I not gotten the time to just think, I wouldn't be here. I filed for my claim. I fought for my claim. It took me 7 years to get that claim. And in the process of doing that, bit by bit, every bit of VA money and benefits that I unlocked, I got time to take away and focus on school. And I made the president's list in school. I got time to focus and teach myself a new trade. Shit, I had the resilience to deal with being unemployed and getting laid off when I did get a good job. Going through the whole roller coaster of it all. Ultimately, what we seek to do is ensure that veterans don't have to work a job that they hate, live a life that they don't like, and keep pursuing things that aren't truly their next mission just to keep food on their tables. VA claims should be a stepping stone, just like the military was for you in your life experience. VA claims should be a stepping stone for you to take that time to think, reverse engineer the life that you want to live, and then go get the fuck after it, because that is your next mission. I hope that this video helped you understand all of the stages of VA claims and what's really going on in them. Hope it provided a little bit of entertainment, a little bit of clarity on the bullshit we all have to deal with, and I hope at the end of this you know that we give a shit, and no one gives more shits than us. If this helped you, or you think it'll help another veteran, please hit that like button, give us a subscribe, and let us know what video you want us to make next.